Hi, this is Jen Rubin, and this is Jen Rubin's Green Room. There's a lot to talk about. We have a tragic accident in Baltimore in which a tanker hit the bridge, and they are still looking for survivors. And we had possibly another wreck, which was at the Supreme Court. Now, on this one, I'm much more optimistic. The Supreme Court heard the case on the FDA's approval of Mifflpristone, which is the abortion drug. This, of course, was allowed to be used, was approved for use 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. And it was really made available and recently made more available for over-the-counter use and wider distribution. Well, the Supreme Court heard a challenge today by groups of doctors and other advocates. And the first issue was, do they even have the right to be there? What is their standing? What injury have they sustained? And this used to be a bugaboo of conservatives. Once upon a time, they used to say, well, someone has to have standing. They have to have a real case, because otherwise you just have advocates bringing theoretical cases all over the place. And suddenly the judges are not in the business of judging, but simply opining on laws right and left. Well, that's exactly what the conservatives are doing here. And interestingly enough, they ran into a buzzsaw. You saw a lot of the justices, including conservative justices, say, wait a minute, there are these doctors who don't like an abortion drug? They don't have to use it? That's right, they don't. There's no one who is compelling them to use this drug or perform abortions, because even in the context of federal abortions that are provided in states that still allow abortions, there's a conscience clause. No doctor, no medical personnel need be forced to perform abortion, medical or otherwise. So why are they even there? Well, the argument went on for some time, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised, because only Justice Alito and Justice Thomas seemed to be on the other side. And what they had to say was frankly frightening. They want to revive the so-called Comstock Act. This was used to prevent prostitution across state lines, the transfer of women and materials of a sexual nature across state lines. They want to use that, frankly, to ban abortion and to ban medical abortions, which are made possible through this drug and another abortion drug. Well, that sounds pretty scary. And what's worse, if an administration like a future Trump administration took that position, they wouldn't need Congress to pass any laws. The Comstock Act is on the books. So what these two justices are doing is fishing for a legal theory so that they continue their crusade to ban abortion nationwide. Now, if this sounds inappropriate, if this sounds like it's judicial activists on steroids, yes, it is. And that's what these judges are up against. So in some ways, this argument was incredibly enlightening. On one hand, you saw there's a limit, even to what an Amy Coney Barrett, a Justice Kavanaugh, a Justice Neil Gorsuch would put up with. On the other hand, you could see how extreme the MAGA anti-abortion, pro-abortion ban forces really are. And that is frightening. They see a whole nother world that is very far from where most Americans are. Abortion is now a 65%, 35% issue, meaning 60 to 65% of Americans want legal access to abortion. So it was eye-opening and somewhat reassuring. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has had quite a spin in New York courts this week. On one hand, he caught a break. The appellate court said he didn't really have to post a bond for $454 million. He could post one just for $175 million. Well, that still sounds like a lot of money, but he may be able to do it. After all, he's just engineered this IPO of Truth Social. He has made perfectly clear he may seek funds from overseas. He may have foreign governments, foreign banks giving him money. He hasn't ruled that out. So he may very well need to meet the requirements of the bond for $175 million, and he may be able to do it. I don't put that past him. Now, what does this really mean? I think it means that while the judgment that Trump did, in fact, inflate the values of his various properties will stand up, the amount of damages may not. And at the time of the judgment, some people, even people who are not favorably disposed to Donald Trump, recognized that the monetary amount could be excessive. So he's not out of the woods yet. And what's more, the appellate court did something very important. It decided that the appeal would be heard very quickly in July. I know that doesn't sound very quickly, but in terms of the New York appellate courts, that's lightning fast. So they may on one hand be saying, well, we're not going to uphold the whole judgment. On the other hand, they may be saying, we're going to get this done fast and we're going to get to a final judgment and the state of New York is going to be able to enforce it, perhaps sooner than Donald Trump imagined. So mixed news there. Meanwhile, this is fast becoming my favorite Trump case, and that is the business falsification case, business records falsification case in New York, brought by Alvin Bragg, who took all kinds of guff from commentators who said, this is a picayune case, or he shouldn't bring it, or it's preempted by federal law. This one is the one that's going to get to trial first, and it may be the most rock-solid case of all of them. So this week, Donald Trump and his lawyers trooped into court, and what was their claim? That the Southern District of New York, these are federal prosecutors, who were supposed to turn over a bunch of documents, because remember, they had investigated Trump, they had investigated Michael Cohen. They were supposed to turn over documents months and months ago. Well, just a couple weeks ago, they dumped tens of thousands of documents. And so Trump was, of course, complaining this is misconduct. We have to delay the trial. Maybe we have to never have a trial. I've been prejudiced. And Merchan basically sat there, scratched his head and say, I don't know why we're here. This DA, Alvin Bragg, has done everything he could possibly have done. As soon as he got the documents, he turned them over. We've given you a few extra weeks to go forward with this. So what's the problem? And in fact, lickety-split, he came back with a ruling, which was, I'll see you in court on April 15. At that point, Trump's attorney raised the possibility of yet another kind of frivolous appeal. And Merchan said in reply to that, well, that's fine, but I'll see you on the 15th. Meaning, I don't think I'm going to entertain any more of your nonsense claims and nonsense requests for delay. So think about this. In less than 3 weeks, Trump is going to have to sit day after day in a New York courtroom with a New York jury and face the music. Finally, he is going to face criminal charges, which, if convicted, are serious felonies. These carry jail time. Now, he may not get a very long jail time. He may not get jail time at all. But the possibility that he could be incarcerated must really terrorize him. And I think that's why you've seen such a absolute volcanic eruption from him on Truth Social. So he's naturally a bit worried. One last thing I will leave you with, and that is President Biden is running a pretty good campaign. After all of this hysterical screaming and agony about the polls, turns out he's really up in a fair number of national polls now, not by a lot, kind of tied or 1 point above. He's improving his standing in state polls. And what's more, he's actually out there energetically campaigning. Where is Trump? He's either in a courtroom or hiding out in Mar-a-Lago. Is something wrong with him? Is he ill? Is he too old? Is he too enfeebled? You know, for all the attacks on our president, he's quite fit. He's quite energetic. He's out there a lot. He's talking to people. He's answering questions to the press. He gave a press conference today on the Baltimore tragedy and took a few questions. So who's the old man here, the infirmed one, the one who cannot get out an intelligible sentence? I think that might be Donald Trump. So we will see. So a busy week and still more to come. If you like this program and you like our other programs, please tell your friends. They can click right there, subscribe, and listen to our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever they get their podcasts. Bye-bye.